Journal. I've got Asheebo Rojas from the Chatham News and Record. Coach John Berry is also going to be joining us. He just joined in. We'll let him in. You see before you an agenda of what we have coming up today. Again, the weekly roundup. We're just going to talk about all those things. A lot of wrestling going on. We're also going to talk about swimming and track. There's some things coming up this weekend. And then, of course, we'll get into the the basketball power rankings. And I do want to say I am at 79 West today. I've got I'm going to expand so everybody can see this. I'm at 79 West. There's the board, whiteboard. I am working with 79 West. We're working on creating a dedicated podcast live stream room here at 79 West that not only can we use at the Chatham Journal, but it will be open to other folks that can come into 79 West and use that. So let me bring on Mr. Asheebo from the Chatham News and Record, and there's Coach Berry from the CoachBerry.com site. Everybody knows Coach Berry. All right. As usual, we're going to start off in what's going on with Chatham News and Record, and the paper came out today and is available up there, so pick it out, and I'm going to let Asheebo take front stage.
Yeah, so out in the Chatham News and Record today, we got the story from Seaforth's two-way state title dual wrestling match against Trinity, in which they lost 31-36. We also have a story from Chatham Central's win over Jordan Matthews from Monday night. Also, regular roundup, athlete of the week. And then also in there, we have, of course, in the roundup, we have all the scores from last week across basketball, girls basketball, boys basketball, and indoor track and swimming as well. Like Gene said, we'll have indoor track and swimming state championships at the end of this week. Swimming starting tomorrow and going into the 9th, and then indoor track on Saturday the 10th. But yeah, we can get into some of the things that happened last week though. In indoor track, we had a lot of individual conference champions from the Mid Carolina 1A 2A championship meet there. Plenty of names in the newspaper that you can read, including Will Lippers from Seaforth, finishing first in the boys 1,000-meter run. We saw a lot of C4th and Northwood athletes win conference titles in their respective events. Julie Hall also won from Northwood, also won the girls 1,000-meter run there. Like I said, you can read all of those names in the Chatham News and Records, plenty of them. And then in swimming, they had the 1A, 2A Central Region Championship where a lot of Chatham County athletes swam in. Seaforth's boys won the boys side of the regional as a team. And there were plenty of 1A, 2A state championship qualifiers from the county after the regional competition. Once again, a long list of athletes that will be that will be competing in the state championship this weekend between Thursday and Friday. So once again, you can read that in the Chatham News and Record. Also, our athlete of the week is one of them. It's Abigail Emitt from Northwood, swimmer there, and she in the 1A 2A Central Region Championship, she swam the fastest times for the girls 200-yard freestyle and the girls 100-yard backstroke. And she was also part of Northwood's girls 200-yard freestyle relay and girls 200-yard medley relay teams that finished 6th and 10th in the region. And Emitt qualified for the 1A 2A state championship meet for both of her individual events. And for those events, a 200-yard freestyle and a 100-yard backstroke, she swam the second fastest times in her for the seed times in the state meet for those events. So expecting big things from Abigail in the state championship meet and possibly a state championship on her end. So yeah, that's what we had from last week from the other sports, but also just a little more details on C4's wrestling bout against Trinity and the state title. They lost that one 36-31. Coach Berry was there commentating and getting in on all the action. You know, they actually had C4 actually had a 13-6 lead at the beginning after Power Mo was pinned first. The Miller twins came in and won some matches. Of course, gave Rojas 2 in the 106 match. So they competed. They were in the lead at the beginning, but Trinity's just a really good wrestling team. Like me and Coach Berry saw, they went on a run and just took it from C4th there and ended up having to they ended up getting the lead. I think it was 30-13, where they just forfeited the last few matches at the end and got the title on the wraps. So, Coach Berry, I mean, you were there commentating, seeing all the action, commentating on all the action. You know, kind of what did you see from C4th and kind of how would you kind of describe the season they had, especially as a third-year team?
Well, first of all, I want to give a big shout out to Coach Armstrong and the entire Seaforth varsity wrestling staff. They have done a phenomenal job over the last 3 years. And you know what? This was something that was on their dream list in terms of competing for a national or state championship. And you know what? They did that with flying colors. They essentially dominated the entire year. They made it all the way to the finals. They played a team in the Trinity Bulldogs, which by all accounts, they were a very legitimate team. They were undefeated last year. They had a little boo-boo leading up to the finals last year and lost. So this year coming in, they had a chip on their shoulder. They were upset at what happened last year. So their only mantra, their single point of interest was to win that whole thing. So those players came back with a vengeance. And unfortunately, our Seaforth team ran into that particular team. But that being said, our boys did a phenomenal job. They came out there and they gave everything they had, from the Josh Millers, the Gabes, everyone went out there and wrestled their tail off. And I saw situations where they were down, but they kept fighting, they reversed, and they ultimately won that particular match. But at the end of the day, you know what? Seaforth's wrestling team has nothing to hold their head down. They have no reason to hold their head down. They're coming back. They're only going to lose one senior, which is, I believe it's Josh Miller. And essentially, they might run this thing back. And just like Trinity did last year, going into this year, I believe Seaforth has a great opportunity to do exactly that. Next year, listen, don't count them out, because I believe next year could also be another special year for the Seaforth varsity wrestling team.
Yeah, like you said, they're only losing Josh Miller out of the starting lineup. So I expect a lot of those guys to really get better next year. They're bringing back Josh's brother Jordan, Gabe Rojas, a lot of guys in the lower weight classes that are really talented and really have taken care of business all season. So, and like Coach Armstrong said, it's not over. They're right back at Moorhead High School next week when they're competing in the regionals and then also in the individual state. So a couple of Seaforth wrestlers can still get their own state titles, especially Josh Miller, who came close last year and was a runner-up in his weight class. He has a chance to complete the mission this year.
Definitely. And so stay tuned for the Seaforth varsity wrestling team. I think they're going to be back and better than ever, and don't count them out.
How did what's her name do in the girls competition? Wasn't that this weekend as well? Or is that coming up?
Yes, Kira, she did win her regional for the 152-pound weight class. I was also in the roundup as well, and she'll be competing for state as well next week. Let me just make sure I got the date right. Yeah, she'll be in the Mid-East Regional. She finished first in the Mid-East Regional Saturday. So, yeah, she'll be competing for state alongside some of the boys in the individual tournaments next week.
Yeah, and referencing what Coach Berry had said, I actually talked to Coach Armstrong when the program started up 3 years ago, and he said they were going to be in the state championship last year. And I said, Coach, what I've seen from new schools that start up, that's probably not going to happen until your third year. And he's like, yeah, we'll see. I was right. They did make it this year. And as Coach Berry said, they only got one senior graduating. I'm hoping Josh Miller does well, because he's one of the top two wrestlers in his weight class in this state. And I hope he's able to be successful where he's number one. His dad and I worked together at Cisco, and we're still friends. Also, we were talking about Coach Berry commentating. For those of you who are not aware, Coach Berry over there used to wrestle at the high school, and also I think he did 1 year in Howard. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but his
you're exactly right.
Okay, I did exactly right. See, I remember stuff. But we did have video commentaries. I only have currently one up there, the 285-pound class, but we will get all the ones where they competed. I think Trinity went ahead and once they knew they had the thing won, they forfeited some of their last matches. The other thing that was interesting is you were talking about how well that team did. They had a pretty spotless record going into this championship. I think one of the teams they only lost to was the Laney team, was actually a 4A team, and they were at the mat right next to them. And their coach I've got to post a picture. He dresses up for these events big time. He had a rainbow suit on that I could not look good in, but he did. And they lost to him when they competed at UNC, but that was and then we've talked about this all the time, playing up a few conference levels so that the competition is good for you, even though you may lose because you're learning a bunch of stuff. So the videos will be up on YouTube. I do have a video up of the awards where the C4th team members got their award, runner-up awards, and they also received a plaque. And then the other thing, Asheebo and I talked about this, Seaforth is the first 2A school from Chatham County to make it into a state championship. Chatham County does have, and Asheebo verified this, and I also checked on it, they did have under Coach Little a Chatham Central 1A team that did go to the championships and did win. So this is the second team from Chatham County to make it all the way to the championship. So we hope that they have more future luck. Anything else to add to that, Asheebo or Coach Barry?
Well, what I would say is definitely check out that video commentary. I think you'll definitely enjoy some of the things that was said about the wrestlers and the team, and it was a very, very exciting event. And as Gene said, when you play up oftentimes, that actually helps you, because now when you go back down and play people in the same bracket or in the same category as you, it tends to make you a little bit stronger relative to the competition that you have. So again, I thought that was a great. I think that's great. Anytime any coach can do that, as long as the competition isn't too far away where you can just completely get just beat down. As long as it's close enough where you can at least compete and fight back a little bit, it's always a positive thing.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is the atmosphere in that place was loud. I know even though Coach Barry was mic'd up, there were times that he had to emphasize, because, Coach Barry can sometimes be a little low energy, but he actually had to speak up so you could hear him over the crowds. The crowds were loud. The Greensboro Fieldhouse was a perfect venue for it. The place was packed, and it was nice to see the guys compete. I think they had a good time. And I got some shots because I was also taking pictures of the parents in the stands. They're like, even though it's not their kid, it's another kid that's competing, and they're like, "Oh, come on, please do it." So definitely a great event. So hopefully they'll get back in there, and we'll be able to cover that again in the future. All right. Do we have anything else to talk about wrestling, or does that kind of wrap it up? All right. And we did check on swimming and track. Do we need to do anything else on that, Asheebo?
Oh, no.
Okay, we're set. So, next one I have up here, Chatham County High School boys volleyball ? We learned something the other day when we were at Jordan Matthews. So, Asheebo, I'll let you tell folks about this. Is boys volleyball coming to Chatham County?
Yeah, Coach Barry West, the AD at Jordan Matthews, he let us know at the Jordan Matthews and Chatham Central game on Monday that he did that the Jordan Matthews will have a boys volleyball team playing with the North Carolina Boys Volleyball Association this year. It's not sanctioned by the state, but there's a lot of teams around the state that have boys interested in playing, and so they'll be competing in the statewide league. And their first game will be on March 5th. So stay tuned for that one, and that'll be really interesting, because Coach West said a lot of the boys that were interested were his boys soccer players that usually don't do much, after the boys soccer season ends in the fall. So we'll have different skills. I know Gene joked about using your foot to get the ball over the net. So
And we find out what was the answer to that question.
Yes, you can use your foot to get the ball over the net. So maybe Jordan Matthews soccer boys that are out there, maybe they'll use it. We'll see.
Well, hey, maybe we'll see some Pele moves out there when they're playing volleyball. All right. Anything else on the boys volleyball? Because if not, we're ready to go into your power rankings, and it's the Asheebo Coach Berry show at that point.
Oh yeah.
All right. Here we go. Let's go, Asheebo.
Yeah, so just want to run through some of the boys' scores first from last week and last night. So starting with last week, Northwood, they beat Bartley NC 84-23 on the 30th. And then they followed that up with a 70-38 win over Seaforth on Friday. And then Chatham Central, they also beat Seaforth 80-67 on the January 30th. And then they beat Graham on Friday 82-54. They finished, this week with another game against Jordan Matthews on Monday, winning that one in a close one, 63-50. We'll talk about that one more later because all of Chatham County's media was at that game, and it turned out to be a really good and close game there at the end. And then Jordan Matthews, they beat Northmoor 44-36 on the 30th, and Bartley NC 57-39. But they lost to Southeast Alamance on Friday 51-65. Chatham Charter, they beat Woods Charter and the Chatham Charter School showdown on the 30th, 65-55. And then they picked up the fifth win. The Knights picked up their fifth win in a row after beating Triangle Math and Science 72-36 Friday. And then Woods Charter lost to Wake Prep Academy on Friday. And last night, we had a couple of games here in the county. We had Northwood hosting Graham on the boys' side. They put up 100 points on Graham in a win, in which Graham only scored 49. Gene, I think you said Northwood has scored 100 points before, right?
Yeah, I posted that. It's the first time I've seen 100 points at a Northwood game that I've attended. And someone posted that, yes, it's been done a previous time. They didn't remember the year, but they do remember one of the players that had played that game. So I'm going to look up what year that player played and try to get an exact time. So it's only the second time that Northwood boys basketball has scored 100 points, and Hayes Burleson was the one that did it. I briefly touched base with him after he scored it, and he said, yeah, he knew that would have been the 100 point. And he's like, hey, I got to get up there and get that basket, because if I don't, folks are going to remember that. And I also asked Coach Brown about it. He said, yes, as a high school basketball coach, he's had a few 100-point games, but that doesn't happen very often. So congratulations to Northwood. They defeated Graham. Really wasn't a contest. They had a running clock in the third quarter, but they did get that 100 points for the game. The other thing, too, is Griffin Hobbs was out there again. So Griffin is recovering. He's back in school. He sits by the bench, and he's still part of the team, although he can't play because of his recovery period. So that wraps it up from my viewpoint last night.
Yeah, and then Chatham Central, they also won last night over Cummings 71-58, and Chatham Charter beat Clever Garden School 72-51. So once again, based off of scores from last week and how we've seen the basketball teams, kind of develop here towards the end of the regular season, we got another set of power rankings for this week. At number 1, I got Northwood. Number 2, Chatham Central. Number 3, Jordan Matthews. Number 4, Chatham Charter. Number 5, C4th. And number 6, Woods Charter. So not much changes from last week. Coach Barry still might disagree with me about having C4th at 5 and Chatham Charter at 4. But once again, same reason it kind of as last week. Chatham Charter's picking up some wins here. And C4th, they're looking at C4's schedule. They could pick up some more wins here in the last stretch of the season, but didn't have the best week last week. So, Coach Barry, what do you think of the power rankings?
I agree with what you have for the most part, but I'm going to surprise you. I think Seaforth is a lot better than that 5th spot. I really believe that. And I believe on any given day, especially when you look at Jordan Matthews, Chatham Charter, I think they can, beat these teams. I think any one of those teams can beat each other. And you know what? To see if I'm right, Seaforth is going to play Jordan Matthews, I believe, on next Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that's going to tell us a lot about what's going on with Seaforth and whether or not my prediction is correct in terms of them being able to compete and ultimately take and beat Jordan Matthews. But again, based off the records and based off head-to-head competition, I think you're spot on with the power rankings. But with the eye test, I believe that Seaforth can very well beat Jordan Matthews as well as Chatham Charter. It would not surprise me whatsoever, which then would put them in that third slot underneath Northwood and Chatham Central. We'll see what happens, but I personally believe that they are very, very. I think it's a very, very doable. I think it's a very, very doable thing for Seaforth to beat Jordan Matthews, and Jordan Matthews can beat them as well. But I don't think that's an easy, or I don't think that's a foregone conclusion at all, whether either one of those teams going to beat each other. I think on any given day, they can each beat each other. And once that happens, I think that would put that team ahead of the other. And I think as far as Chatham Charter, I'm not sure about that one either, because again, I need to see them play Seaforth. Seaforth has been playing, some pretty tough competition, from High Point Christian Academy. They play Cumming. They obviously play Northwood twice. They play Chatham Central twice. I mean, they play some pretty decent teams. And I'm not 100% sure if Chatham Charter has played those type of teams. And ultimately, once Seaforth plays Chatham Charter, I think that it's more of a climb for Chatham Charter to beat Seaforth than Seaforth to beat them. This is why I have Seaforth potentially the third spot, depending upon if they can beat Jordan Matthews.
Yeah, I hear you, and I feel like the teams from 3 to 5, like all year, have been really close, especially between Jordan Matthews and Seaforth, who of course play each other twice and are in the same conference.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at Seaforth's last 3 games, right? Southeast Alamance, Jordan Matthews, Bartlett Yancey. Depending on the Seaforth team we see, they could very well win all 3 of those games. But we know Southeast Alamance will be a tough one for them. They a couple weeks ago, 70-52. Jordan Matthews, I feel like will probably be the tightest game in that stretch because they played them close at Jordan Matthews. Could have came back and won that one and had plenty of opportunities throughout the game to win that one. But Jordan Matthews just got the best of them. So,
well, let me jump in a couple of things. I think if you look at the last 3 games that Seaforth has, I think from a stylistic perspective, the Southeast Alamance, that's the tricky game because they have athletes, they have guards, they have like 2 or 3 guards, they skill players, and when you look at how Seaforth normally plays up and down style, pressing, run and gun, that type of style, it actually plays right into what Southeast Alamance does. That's what they want to do. And ultimately, I think that game is going to be probably the toughest, the most difficult out of the 3 remaining. Then the Jordan Matthews game, it just depends upon how well we play Brendan Odom, how well they defend him, because they have like this 4-out, 1-in type system where Brendan Odom is basically prowling the lane, going side to side in the lane, and they're looking to get him the ball there. And once he gets it there, he's definitely looking to go up, and he's very aggressive. And if he misses, he tends to get his own rebound, go back up, score. He'll get fouled, go to the free throw line. So if Seaforth can bottle him up and keep the guards out the paint and don't give up any like cheap baskets, they have a very good shot at winning that particular game. But on the flip side, if it's up and down, and Brendan Odom gets the ball in the paint, then I think that's the formula for Jordan Matthews to win that particular game. And as far as Bartlett Yancey, I haven't really seen him play closely, but just from what I've been seeing with their record and the scores and just where they at, I think it's a little bit of a drop off from last year, and I don't really see them competing or beating Seaforth. Although the one thing that Bartlett Yancey does have in his favor is it's a Friday night away game for Seaforth, and it's probably the senior night for Bartlett Yancey, so they may come out with a little bit more energy, a little bit more zest and zeal, more motivated. So Seaforth got to watch that. because again, you run into these trap games and you end up walking out with a loss. So we have to just be mindful of that particular thing as well. But nevertheless, I do think Seaforth has the great potential to actually run the table with Southeast Alamance being the toughest game, Jordan Matthews, followed by Bartlett Yancey.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought up Brendan Oldham, because I feel like he would be the difference in that game, right? Because we know Seaforth, not the strongest down low with their big men, but he was the difference, the first time. But against Chatham Central, Brendan Oldham, we saw he got out to a good start. He was the difference in that one in the beginning, because once again, Jordan Matthews just kept feeding him down low. They couldn't stop him on the boards. They couldn't stop him at the rim. And they made a game with Chatham Central. Even had the lead at halftime and kept it within 3 going into the fourth quarter until, of course, we know Brendan picked up his 4th foul, had to come out. And, that's when Chatham Central really got going. So that game kind of – what did that game kind of tell you about Jordan Matthews' potential? Because a lot of times this year we see them where they can play with some of the best teams in the conference. But, either sometimes something happens like foul trouble, might get them in trouble down the road, or just, lackadaisical execution or just missed opportunities to where they don't always win those games. But sometimes, they can be there in position to win. What does that tell you about Jordan Matthews this year?
Well, ultimately, I think Jordan Matthews should applaud themselves. They are significantly better than they were a year ago, especially with the addition of Brendan Oldham. And he's the catalyst, and, how well he does is probably how well the entire team is going to do. At the start of that Chatham Central game with Jordan Matthews, they were able to get the ball into Brendan Oldham, and he was, doing what he does. He scores down low, he gets the ball, he goes back up. He's kind of intense. He smacks his hands every time he scores a basket to let the other player know that I'm here. I'm going to be here all day long. 2 things happened in that game, which I believe turned the game. The first thing was Chatham Central started to really, really load their defense up towards Brendan Oldham. When he would be on the block, you would have somebody pushing him constantly. And then the next closest defender would what we call dig down, which means cheat a little bit closer to Brendan Oldham so they can't just throw the ball into him. So they was making it very difficult for him to touch the basketball. That was number 1. Number 2, when he did touch the basketball, they just outright double teamed him, forcing him to kick it back out, making those other players make plays, whether that was shoot the 3, shoot the mid-range, or try to get to the rim. There was a couple players that tried to drive and shoot runners. They weren't too successful with that. And with a lot of the threes, it just didn't happen. So although Jordan Matthews has got significantly better, especially with the addition of Brendan Oldham, I still believe they are probably a 1 year away, assuming they'll keep the core pieces of that team together, 1 year away from really making some noise, because I saw different signs with certain players that they still a little bit inexperienced. They still a little bit, they still kind of working out the kinks. But once they work these kinks out, I think this is going to be a very, very formidable team. Now, on the flip side, Chatham Central, that is a legitimate team with Reed Albright, Aiden Johnson, Devontae Johnson. You have Luke Gaines, Gilliland. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. This is a legitimate team because they have some skilled players that know their roles. They play real well together. You can't rush them. They're going to take their time. They're going to run their sets. They play good pack-type defense like hyenas. They play that 2-3. They can go man-to-man. And even though they're not the tallest and biggest team girth-wise, as a unit, they play super well together. I think the biggest thing that impresses me about Chatham Central is they don't just blow you out. They gradually just grind you. And they do it over the course of the entire game. If you look at the end of the first quarter, the game might be relatively close. Second quarter might even go into halftime close. And then ultimately what ends up happening is by the time you get to third and the fourth, they start getting away from you. Now it's an 8-point lead. Now it's a 12-point lead. Now you look up, it's 3 minutes left in the game. They're up by 20. Like, man, how did that happen? Because they grinding you. And the other thing that's really, really an underrated thing that they do is Reed Albright. Everybody knows about him scoring, but if you really take a close look at him, he's a lot stronger than he looks. he's what I call, he has a lot of these little muscles, little core muscles that you really can't see. He's strong. He can beat you on that block. Anytime they run into a problem, they'll put him on a block. They'll throw the ball into him, and he's able to essentially bully those smaller type guards to go up and get his shot off. And if he misses, he'll get the rebound. So he can beat you on the block. He can shoot the 3-ball. He can shoot the mid-range ball. He's smart as a whip, and he plays defense. So, yes, I am extremely impressed with Chatham Central. And I think although they will not win the conference, and I don't believe they're going to win the conference tournament, I think when the state championship comes in play, or the state playoffs, especially being a 1A, I think they're going to make some big noise.
Yeah, looking at the RPIs, and we can start with 1A because Chatham Central, we're on the topic of them, but they're, as of today, they're the number 6 team in the 1A East side. So, like you said, they're playing 2A competition. They're starting to learn to play outside of Reed, because even we saw against Jordan Matthews, they started with a double team, then they just face guarded them. Now Reed's still gonna get his, but we saw Devontae really put the game away at the end, if you ask me, right? He's leading the fast breaks coming down the court. He's a threat in transition at the layup, and when they converged on him, he's really good about kicking it out, and that's when he hit Luke and Jacob for 3. So they learned to play, outside of Reed. Number 6 seed. If they get in the 5 or 6 range, they might not be playing the best of the best, which sets them up, for a really deep run there in 1A. Also, looking at the whole playoff, landscape now as of today, I mean, we could possibly have all 6 teams on the boys' side make the playoffs. On the 2A East side, we have Northwood at number 4. Jordan Matthews is right knocking on the door at number 33, and Seaforth also right behind at 36. So if Seaforth, Jordan Matthews can really get strong pushes here, last 3 or 4 games of the regular season, and do well enough in the conference tournament, we might see them get in there on the 2A side. And then the 1A side, we have Chatham Charter at number 19, who we know should get in from winning their conference. And Woods Charter is number 28, who's actually having a pretty good year in conference play. So shout out to Woods Charter and the Wolves down there. They're having a pretty good year there, and it could be in the 1A playoffs. But want to get – Gene, did you want to say something about middle school?
Yeah, the other thing I want to say about middle school, and this is particularly folks in the county, that's a big event. That's going to start next week. It's going to run from the 12th to the 16th. The way that happens is the higher ranked teams will host the lower ranked teams, and then on the final day, the 16th, is when they have the championship. That's going to be both girls and boys. That is a big event. Last year they had it, I believe it was at Jordan Matthews. The place was packed. There's a lot of enthusiasm for it. For some of the kids, they're going to go on and play in high school. For some of them, that's going to be their last school basketball games. The neat thing about that, too, is I think this year, and I'll verify this for next Wednesday, is I believe the championship game will be played at Seaforth. So there'll be plenty of space on there. Margaret Pollard usually does well. Horton usually does well, but there's always smaller schools that will come out and surprise you based upon the team strength, the players' desire to win, and the coaching. So, we talk a lot about high school, but next week we've got middle school that's going to take center stage here in Chatham County for a few days. That kind of wraps it up on middle school, unless you all want to add something to it, because I think we're ready to go into the girls' power rankings.
Yeah, we can run through some of the girls' scores from last week and last night before we get into that. So starting with last week, just like the boys, Seaforth, they beat Chatham Central on January 30th, 64-24. And then they finished the week with the big win over Northwood on Friday, winning that one 51-36. And we'll talk about that one more later. And then Northwood, they got a big win over Bartlett Yancey on the 30th, 57-18. And then Jordan Matthews, they won a close one over Northmore, 47-45 on the 30th. But they lost to Bartlett Yancey the next day, 56-63. And then they lost to Southeast Alamance Friday, 15-57. And then Chatham Central, they beat Graham 55-35 on Friday. And they also beat Chatham Charter, beat Woods Charter 77-38 in their side of the showdown between the Chatham Charter schools. And then Chatham Charter also beat Triangle Math and Science Friday 61-41. and Woods Charter lost to Wake Prep Academy Friday. And last night, the girls' scores, we had Northwood beating Graham 58-17. Chatham Central beat Cummings 56-34. And Chatham Charter beat Clever Garden School 56-35. And power rankings for the girls' side, based off last week's scores and what we saw from them last week. Of course, number 1, we got Seaforth. Number 2, Northwood. Number 3, Chatham Charter. 4, Chatham Central. 5, Jordan Matthews. And 6, Woods Charter. Not much has changed really for the past couple of weeks. I think we pretty much know, where the girls' teams shake out now here in the county, especially in the Mid-Carolina 1A, 2A conference. Chatham Central leading the 1A side, and I think is 3rd in the conference, if I'm not mistaken. But, yeah, Coach Barry, what did you think about the girls' power rankings and girls' basketball last week, especially that big one between Seaforth and Northwood?
Okay, so if I'm hearing you correctly, you said Seaforth, Northwood. You had Chatham Central next, right? As number 3?
Chatham Charter at 3.
Oh, Chatham Charter. Okay, and then you had Chatham Central, and then followed by Jordan Matthews, then Woods Charter.
Yep.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I completely agree with that. One little caveat: I would like to see Chatham Charter. I would just like to see Chatham Charter play Chatham Central. I would like to also see them play Jordan Matthews as well. That would really, really solidify it. That's just the only question mark that I have. I know they're really good, and I believe in Coach Patterson, head coach over at Chatham Charters girls. But they were doing extremely well last year, and then they happened to play Seaforth at home when they was running through everybody in the division. Then when they played Seaforth, it was eye-opening in a way where Seaforth pretty much had their way and did anything they wanted to do. Now, these teams are not Seaforth. I get that. But I just think that given who these other teams have been playing, right, versus maybe the scheduling of Chatham Charter, I think that may have something to do with this. But again, if you look at it purely on paper, I agree with you 100%. They rocking and rolling, they hand on their business, and you can't fault them for who they play. They can't control how good or bad maybe another team is. But again, if I put them in a tournament, those teams, and you let them duke it out, I think that Chatham Central, especially Chatham Central, I think Jordan Matthews, they'll probably beat them. But the Chatham Central game is interesting to me, right? Because they got the girth. They got the girth to kind of fight down low, and they can move the ball a little bit, and they used to higher competition. The other thing I'll point out is I did see Chatham Central play a team, that Chatham Charter typically plays, which is called Triangle Math and Science, and they pretty much wiped the floor with them with no problem. So that's why I said I really want to see those two play. But on paper, completely agree with you. But with the eye test, I would just like to see those. I like to see those teams play to definitively give me my answer, what I'm looking for in terms of who is better.
Well, yeah, we actually have a pretty good chance of seeing those two possibly play in maybe the state tournament because
Right.
Looking at the RPIs for the girls' side, I mean, of course, on the 1A side, the big teams, Chatham Charter, the 3 seed, they've been running through their conference, like we said, and Chatham Central is actually the 13th seed as of now. So, really we could see them play against each other, and I think it's interesting that you say. I think Chatham Central's strength is definitely down low. Carolee Dotson, and those girls they have down low, but Chatham Charter has a really good big piece and Mia Brooks down low as well, and then they have the freshman Hannah Hedden giving you almost 20 a night as well. So it's interesting to see how that may match up because we know it's like you said, the competition is different. Chatham Central's been playing Northwood, C4. They've seen the best of the best in this county. Chatham Charter, not so much. So
one thing I'll also point out is about 5-6 years ago, I don't know if you know this, but Chatham Central was in the same conference as Woods. And for those 2 to 3 years, they ran through everybody. Everybody.
Wow.
No one could beat them. And then they left. And I remember talking to the prior coach over at Chatham Central, And they were like, yeah, we wanted to get out of that conference because we didn't think that the competition was high enough so that when we got into the state playoffs, it was really helping us. We had to really have a stronger, out of conference type schedule. That's what they said to me, right? Which is one of the reasons why they're out, because if it wasn't for that, they would still be in that conference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we kind of seen that they pretty much beat everybody in this conference, right? Mid Carolina 1A, 2A, except for Seaforth, Northwood, Southeast Alamance. Those are 3 teams that give them trouble. But everyone else, Bartlett, Cummings, Jordan Matthews, Chatham Central is actually, to me, on a different level than them. It's kind of weird, in the position they're in. But also, I want to talk about the Seaforth and Northwood game because we talked about how that one was the big game of Friday night, how it could have came down to the wire. But once again, Seaforth just, I don't know. And actually, in that game, Northwood kind of came out with a lot of energy to start, had to lead at the end of the first quarter. But that second quarter, Seaforth just put the defense down on them, didn't let them score in the second quarter, ran the score up. And by halftime, it was a completely different game, right? And Coach Bear, you were on the sidelines. You were helping, Seaforth with the defensive strategy and the game plan there. Kind of what was the difference in this game on Friday?
Listen, I think when you look at two rivalry teams, everybody knows everybody. Everybody knows everybody's player, know what their tendencies are. They kind of have an idea what their sets are going to be. I think at the end of the day, what it all comes down to is just execution. And I just thought on that particular night, the Seaforth girls probably just executed a little bit better. But again, as I've said many, many times, on any given day, any team can beat the other team. Just because Seaforth beat them that particular night, that doesn't mean that they can beat them tomorrow or the next day. Because I think if Northwood comes out and play their game, they have a great opportunity to shock, Seaforth and shock the community and beat Seaforth. That's why both teams, each time that they come out and play, they're going to have to come with their A game and they're going to have to execute. I will make this statement, though. I think the biggest thing for Seaforth is defense. That's the biggest thing that we really do, is because we believe that defense is one of the ways that can maximize your chances of success, as opposed to, I want to get into a track meet. I want to beat you 65 to 60, 80 to 75. Track meets I don't like running because you can't guarantee whether or not you're going to make threes, whether you're going to get run out for layups, whether you're going to feel good that day and hit everything you throw up. It's just, I don't like that recipe personally. I can't control it as much, right? It just can't. But with defense, with heart, hustle, effort, assignment-based basketball, I think you have more of an opportunity to duplicate that approach than you can by depending on whether or not you can score 75 or 80 points. And I think that's really one of the things that we try to do. I know Northwood tries to do the same thing, and I know Southeast Alamance tries to do the same thing as well. And it just comes down to, when it's time to play, who's going to better execute the game plan. Last point I'll make. One thing that I love about Northwood, they got that grit. They got that they got that toughness, they got that physicality. And I love that about the way Northwood plays. And, I think they should definitely keep that up, because I think that definitely helps them maximize their chances of winning.
Yeah, I mean, we saw that they've played and given C4 all they can handle those first 2 times, right? And we can possibly see them play again, and of course in the conference tournament. I kind of expect those 2 teams to meet each other in the conference championship, and then we could also see them play again in the state tournament as well, because we're looking at RPI 2A East Side. We got C4 at number 1, Northwood at 12. So this isn't the end all be all from Friday, and I think Northwood, and like you said, it's a game of defense, right? And Northwood came out playing really good defense in that first quarter. Seaforth just did it better there in the second quarter, and then got the turnovers that led to offense. So it's just a matter of just who. It's almost like a matter of who just wants it more. Sometimes it feels like. And when we watch those games, we do see that diving for loose ball, second chance opportunities do make a difference. in the Seaforth and Northwood girls game.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was going to add to that too, as Coach Amy let me put up a GoPro behind the backboard. And one of the things I noticed looking at that video, I haven't posted that yet because I need to slice some things together, is that a lot of the shots that Northwood was taking were actually good shots. They just weren't going in that night. So do I think Northwood would have won that game? No, but I think the game could have been closer than it landed up being. It's just that some of those shots just weren't sticking and weren't going in. So anything else we need to talk about, girls or boys power rankings, before we get into where you gentlemen are going to be in the next 7 days? Because we're getting to that point where we need to start wrapping this up.
No, I think we got it all covered.
All right.
Yes.
So, Coach Barry, where are you going to be over the next 7 days?
Today, Seaforth plays Yancey at home. Varsity game is at 7. JV is at 5:30. Friday, which is going to be a big game for Seaforth as well, away at Southeast Alamance. That's sort of like a super game. That's going to be a big game there. And I know Southeast Alamance, they're very upset from that last game. They're looking to exact revenge. And then the last game that I'm very, very interested in is the Northwoods game when they play Chatham Central. I believe it's on Tuesday. That's the game that I'm very interested in. I don't know if Chatham Central is going to win. I just want to see if they can at least keep it a little bit more competitive throughout the entire game. It's going to be interesting to look at, especially at Northwood.
Yeah, on Friday I will be at Jordan Matthews for their games against Bartlett Yancey, because it's a big night for Jordan Matthews Athletics. I think they'll be honoring a lot of their Hall of Fame inductees from their athletics program that night. And then also I will be at Northwood for the game against Chatham Central. It's like Coach Barrett said, really want to see just how that second round will go, see if Chatham Central can keep it up the whole game this time, and how they'll kind of attack Northwood differently, because I'm sure Northwood will expect them to try to slow the game down the same way they did. And, two good coaches going up against each other, I'm sure we'll see some interesting adjustments in that one. And, also, last thing before we go, I also want to give a shout-out to Levi Perkins, senior from the Seaforth boys basketball team. Today, he was officially recognized as a top 10 finalist for the Jersey Mike's Naismith High School Basketball Courage Award. If you guys aren't familiar with Levi's story, it was ran by WRAL earlier this week, but he came back after a water slide accident in July after 4 to 5 months. He ruptured his ACLs in both knees, and multiple ligament injuries in both knees, and came back in 4 to 5 months to play basketball in his senior year with some of the boys he started at Seaforth with and played in middle school with, which was a big deal for him. I talked to his mother, talked to him today, and they're just really, really grateful that he's been able to go through that process and come out healthy and have enough and do it in enough time to still play a full, half of a senior year. So congrats to Levi. And I think we'll know who wins the award, I think, in the next month. So hopefully we'll see if he can get it.
And you're gonna have that story. You're gonna have that story in the paper next week, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the Levi Perkins story is a lot bigger than basketball. Mm-hmm. It's a story about like major adversity. When adversity is on your doorstep, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to stay down? Are you going to get up? Are you going to step up? And Levi Perkins said, you know what? I have this debilitating knee injury, which I should be out the entire season, but I really love basketball. I really want this. I'm going to work my tail off, and I'm going to do everything I humanly can to try to get back. And miraculously, within a 5-month period, only missing half the season, he came back. And by him being able to come back, he's inspired his entire team, the community, and now this has gotten nationwide attention. And ultimately, this is the big thing with me, what Levi Perkins has learned for himself and also has taught other people is this: even if you down, even if you out, there's always a way. Pick yourself up, put together a little game plan, have that discipline, have that tenacity, keep moving forward, keep improving little by little every day. And if you do that, even though your situation may be dire or you think it's dire, good things are going to be at the end. And that's what he proved to himself, and that's what he's proven to essentially the entire country. So Levi Perkins, All of us love you. We love what you stand for, bud. And keep being you. Keep doing what you do. And I'll see you at the next game.
Yeah, I think that we can wrap that up. I do want to thank, and I think Coach and Asheebo and I run into this situation. I want to thank the sports moms out there, because the sports moms, I think all three of us have had some of those sports moms, the player moms, come up to us and say, "Hey, thanks for what you do. We appreciate the weekly roundup. We appreciate you acknowledging our kids, and this is something unique." And thank you for the moms, because again, we try to improve every week, and we love talking about the kids here in the community. So moms, thank you. We love you. We love your kids, and we enjoy seeing them play, and we hope they're all successful, whichever Chatham County team they are, both in school, in the sports they play in school, and then once they get out into life. So I'm starting to sound like an old dad here. With that, we're going to wrap it up. And hey, folks, next Wednesday here at noontime, some big games this coming weekend. Coach Barry will be back. Asheebo will be back. And we'll be talking basketball, swimming, and track, and a whole lot more stuff.